This is the videotape deposition of Richard Jupe, taken by the plaintiffs in re Engel progeny cases in the United States District Court for the Middle District of Florida, Jacksonville Division. This deposition is being held at the offices of Hunton & Williams in Richmond, Virginia on October 5th, 2011. My name is Jason Levin from U.S. Legal Support, and I'm the video specialist. The court reporter today is Cindy Sebo, also from U.S. Legal Support. We're going on record at 9:11 a.m. Will counsel now state their appearances for the record?
Norwood Wilner for the plaintiffs.
Terry Sexton for Phillip Morris USA and the witness.
And on the telephone as well?
Telephone.
Good morning. This is Maria Ruiz for Liggett Group, LLC, and Vector Group Limited.
Good morning. This is Brian Foster, a DOA Piper, appearing for Lower Ward Tobacco Company.
Carrie Arnold. I'm Arnold and Porter, also for Phillip Morris USA. Deanna News and Lindsay, appearing on behalf of R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company.
And will the court reporter please swear in the witness?
Mr. Jupe, would you kindly raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly declare or affirm, under the penalties of perjury, the testimony you shall give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Mr. Jupe.
I do.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Jupe, would you give us your residence, or rather your working address, and tell us who you work for?
I work in Richmond, Virginia, for Altria Client Services.
Altria? Is that what you said?
Altria? Altria Client Services.
Is that somehow related to the tobacco company we know as Phillip Morris?
It is related in that we are both held as a subsidiary by the Altria Group.
Well, have you been hired by attorneys for Phillip Morris Tobacco Company?
Object to form.
No, I am hired and employed by Altria Client Services.
Do you know that you've been asked to testify in cases involving Phillip Morris Tobacco Company?
I've been asked to testify on behalf of Phillip Morris USA.
So what is your relationship to the tobacco company?
Altria Client Services is a subsidiary of the Altria Group. The Altria Group also has as a company Phillip Morris USA. Altria Client Services, whom I'm employed by, provides a service including RD&E to Phillip Morris USA.
What does RD&E mean?
Research, development, and engineering.
So what do you do for Phillip Morris?
I am the director of cigarette product development for Altria Client Services.
And so who develops the cigarettes? Altria Client Services, Phillip Morris, or what?
Altria Client Services develops, designs, maintains the cigarettes for Phillip Morris USA.
Was there a time when Phillip Morris used to design, develop its own cigarettes?
Yes.
How did that pass to Altria Client Services?
Object to form.
A couple of years ago, the company structured a little bit differently, and Altria Client Services was a subsidiary of the Altria Group, and now we provide that service to Phillip Morris USA.
Does Phillip Morris USA pay you for doing that?
Object to form.
I'm paid by Altria Client Services.
But does Phillip Morris pay this Altria Group to design its cigarettes for it?
There is relationships of, if you will, legal relationships, but I don't pretend to understand all the nuances of Phillip Morris USA being part and being held in total by Altria Group.
Well, I'm just trying to get the big picture. Phillip Morris USA is the people that sell the cigarettes, right?
Yes.
So the billions of dollars that come in from the sales of cigarettes go into Phillip Morris USA?
Object to form.
Phillip Morris USA manufactures and sells the cigarettes. The money is all held through the Altria Group. I'm not a finance. I don't understand how that all works.
Well, I'm just saying that, you know, you're not saying you're in like a totally separate company from Phillip Morris that has nothing to do with Phillip Morris cigarette sale, right?
Object to form.
I'm certainly not saying that I have nothing to do with Phillip Morris USA. I mean, certainly Altria Client Services provides the service to Phillip Morris USA for the research and development of its cigarettes.
And evidently, Phillip Morris USA evidently, when the money comes in, it goes to this Altria group, right?
Objectiform Foundation.
As far as the financial structure of the company, I'm certainly not an expert in that area, but I mean, it's a well-documented, well-publicized how Altria Group reports its earnings based on the operating companies that do sell products.
So you're saying all of this connection between Altria Group and Phillip Morris, the tobacco company, that's all out there and published, right?
Objectiform.
I certainly can go to the Altria Group website, and it's really clearly depicted how the companies, the subsidiaries of Altria Group, are set up.
Who is it that makes decisions about what kind of cigarette Phillip Morris is going to make?
Phillip Morris as a management group, they have Phillip Morris USA has its own chief executive officer. It has its own vice presidents and various levels of branding. And so the decisions made by Phillip Morris USA.
And how does what you do relate to what they do?
We, as the name of the group states, we provide them the service. If Phillip Morris USA wants a new cigarette, if you will, they will come to my group, and we will provide that service to them.
Well, all right. Doesn't your group monitor the kinds of products they're making now?
Yes.
How long's that been going on?
The structure for Altria Client Service is about 3-4 years old now. So in that relationship, the group I am part of today used to be part of Phillip Morris USA prior to that.
And when did that change?
It's about 3 or 4 years. I don't remember the exact date.
All right, so you used to work for Phillip Morris, the tobacco company, directly, right?
That is correct. Phillip
then-
Morris USA, yes.
Then they took your group and they moved it to another group in Altria.
They created a new subsidiary, Altria Client Services, under the Altria Group.
Why'd they do that?
Objectiform Foundation.
And I don't know all the details of why they've done that, but we have different operating companies, and it's a common practice to have a centralized, in the case of research and development, to provide services to different operating companies. So it's a common practice within a consumer packaged goods company.
Well, what is your position with this services group?
I am the director of cigarette product development.
So you don't, when you say you're a director, is that like some kind of a manager?
Objectiform.
I mean, what is a director?
As a director, I have a group of people who report to me.
Are you an officer?
No.
Objectiform.
Are there any officers?
Yes.
All right, so do you make I'm just trying to figure out what the word director means. Is it, you're not like on the board of directors, that's a different kind of director, right?
I am not on the board of directors, no.
So you're a director, which means you supervise certain things.
Yes, I do supervise.
And you report to whom?
I report directly to the vice president of product design and technology,
Who is who?
a gentleman named Mark Cruz.
Okay. And he is a vice president at this service group.
Yes.
All right, so who is it at Phillip Morris, the tobacco company, that makes decisions about what to do, what products to make, what positions to take, that kind of thing?
Objectiform.
Phillip Morris has a CEO. He also has vice presidents of brand and manufacturing and other levels within there, if you will. It is the decision of Phillip Morris USA to introduce, market, if you will, new cigarettes, etc. And of course, they will get approval through the Altria Group as well.
Okay. And so is it so who at either the cigarette company or Altria or whatever makes a decision on what the position of the company is going to be on certain matters, such as things the FDA might do, and things that relate to public health?
Objectiform.
It's going to depend on the type of question, the type of decision that has to be made.
All right.
But as far as policy setting, you've got a CEO of the Altria Group.
Well, you're aware that the FDA has recently enacted a rule that requires, if not changed. It requires cigarettes to have 9 new graphic warnings on them, right?
I'm aware of the oversight of the FDA, absolutely. I'm also aware of the parts of the statute that they're implementing.
Okay, and so somebody at Phillip Morris, when I say Phillip Morris, because we're dealing with cigarettes here, so I may include, some group that recommends things. I don't care about that, but I'm going to use the word Phillip Morris in this deposition. You correct me if I'm wrong. Who at Phillip Morris decided what position to take when the FDA came out and said you need to put these 9 graphic warnings on your product?
Objective form.
I don't know who as an individual exactly, but certainly we have a gentleman who's in charge of our regulatory affairs group to assure that we are compliant with the requirements of the Food and Drug Administration.
Well, did Phillip Morris decide to fight the FDA and not try to avoid putting these graphic warnings on its products?
Objective form.
No.
So is Phillip Morris intending to put the 9 graphic warnings on its products when required?
If the FDA makes that a requirement, which it is currently, and they don't change their mind, we will comply with the regulation.
So did you, when the FDA suggested that these 9 warnings, graphics, including graphics, go on the products, go on the cigarettes, did you make a study of the warnings to determine if they were scientifically accurate?
Objective form.
I do not know of a study we conducted.
Well, so did you conclude that the warnings were scientifically accurate?
I don't know. If we didn't conduct a study, we certainly don't draw a conclusion either way.
Well, there's lots of ways to draw a conclusion, but besides doing your own study, you can read what the FDA said, you can look at their evidence, and you can make a conclusion yourself, can't you?
We certainly are a company that will comply with the law. We have obviously allowed and encouraged and permitted to make comments to such rulings, but we will comply unequivocally with the requirements.
Well, I assume that you'll comply with the law, but that really it wasn't exactly my question. My question was, let's go back in time. When did the FDA first suggest, by way of a notice of proposed rulemaking, that it was going to require 9 graphic warnings on cigarettes, roughly?
If my memory serves me correctly, the statute requires warning labels to be placed on cigarettes. Exactly when if you will, the rule-in or the decision was made by the FDA as to what warning labels to be put onto the packs, within the last year or so.
Well, so you were aware that the FDA was going to require warnings that say, for instance, cigarettes are addictive, tobacco can harm your children, cigarettes cause fatal lung disease, smoking during pregnancy can harm your babies, smoking can kill you, accompanied by graphics that show, like people, dead people or real or acting people on oxygen, and even a picture of somebody who it looks like he's blowing smoke out of a tracheostomy, a hole in his throat.
Objective form.
You were aware of those when the FDA suggested it, right?
If my memory serves me correctly, in the statute, it certainly called for the requirements of new warning labels. I think it may have even included at some point suggestive wordings. And since the passage of that bill in 2009, then those 9 warning labels were decided upon, if you will, by the FDA.
All right, and then when the FDA made the suggestions in a proposal, Phillip Morris had the opportunity to take a look, evaluate the scientific and other aspects of these, and tell the FDA whether it agreed or not, right?
Phillip Morris, as with others, was encouraged to make comments on the rulemaking by the FDA as part of the process.
Well, aren't the comments basically I mean, the comments kind of go to whether you agree or disagree that you want to do this?
Objective form.
Our comments are obviously on the FDA website. What exactly they say verbatim, I don't pretend to remember. We certainly talked about within those comments rights, if you will, First Amendment rights, but also the total coverage of the PAC or 50% coverage of the PAC. So our comments are publicly available.
Well, I know, but I've got you here to answer questions, so maybe we'll ask a little bit about it, because you mentioned just you had comments on 50% availability and what your rights, you said, First Amendment rights?
If I remember the document correctly, it's been a while since I've read it.
Well, what role did you have in making any in providing input into the scientific or substantive, the scientific, the factual correctness of these warnings that the FDA was saying they wanted you to put on your product?
Objective form.
Personally, I did not have a role in the comments for the packaging. My group, my responsibilities do not include packaging, and I'm certainly not the person at the company who would discuss the merits of those warnings.
Well, so there's somebody else at the company who would be able to say whether these warnings that the FDA is saying you need to put on now were scientifically correct?
There is certainly a group who compiled our comments back to the FDA, and like I said, that's a publicly available document. I was not party, or part of, I should say, those discussions.
Well, but just tell me how it works. I mean, there's got to be somebody at Phillip Morris who has the scientific understanding and the scientific background to tell other people there, look, these are right or they're wrong.
Objective form.
We do have health science research people within our RD&E group, yes.
RD&E is your group, right?
Objective form.
I am part of the R&D of Altria Client Services.
Okay, so the RD, so you have health science people. You say you like people who would know whether these warnings the FDA is making you put on are correct, right?
Objective form.
We have a health science research group as part of our R&D. We also have our regulatory affairs group, and they were the, if you will, the groups that provided the comments back to the FDA.
So did the health science group, as you put it, did they write up a memorandum and tell the other people, look, we've looked at these warnings and they're not right, or we looked at them and they are right?
Objective form. Foundation.
I don't know of such a memo.
Well, these health science people, aren't they people that work with you?
Yes.
Well, the requirement that you put graphic warnings on your cigarettes that covers a lot of the package. I mean, this is not a trivial matter to Phillip Morris, is it?
I mean, it's certainly a change in the packaging of 50%.
So you're telling me that the people who work with you, these health science people, you're not even aware of them briefing the regulatory people on the scientific accuracy of the FDA?
Objective form.
Again, our comments to the FDA include everything that we compiled and gave to the FDA in regards to this topic. I don't mean to be not answering a question, I just don't recall what was included in that document. I mean, Phillip Morris's position is very clear. We will comply with what the FDA thinks are the appropriate warning labels.
Well, let me ask, just from your point of view, do you believe that the people who buy Phillip Morris cigarettes are entitled to know the truth about Phillip Morris's cigarettes?
I think individuals are entitled to know the truth or information about any product they buy.
Are they entitled to know the whole truth and nothing but the truth about the cigarettes that they buy and smoke?
Objective form.
I'm not sure what you mean by the whole truth and nothing but the truth, but certainly I think if people want to know about any product they buy, they should be able to acquire, if you will, facts about those products.
They should be able to acquire it?
Yes.
Well, what do you mean acquire it?
Well, be able to acquire information, be able to put their hands on the information, whether it's through a website, through an 800 number, by some means.
Well, is there an 800 number? So let me back up. So what you're saying is, as far as you understand, Philip Morris will comply with the FDA when it's required to do so, right?
That's basically what the law says, yes.
Well, the law doesn't say you couldn't comply a day early, does it?
Objective form.
I don't think the law verbatim states that, but there are requirements that the FDA essentially has to give authority to any change we make to our cigarettes now, and to my understanding, including the packaging.
So you think that if you wanted to put these graphic warnings on the products today, you don't think the FDA would let you?
Objective form.
I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, is that the reason you don't have them on today?
Objective form.
To my understanding, the FDA has put a line out there of September 22nd, 2012, that they're requiring these warning labels to go on there. And we're currently preparing to do that. It's quite a long effort for us to convert all of our packaging to do this.
Well, let's take it step at a time. One of the warnings on here is that cigarettes are addictive, right?
I believe that's so, yes.
And how long has the company known that?
Objective form.
I think if you use, when we say things as a company, I'll use the website as an example, that's been out there for the last 10, 11 years.
Well, I didn't say that, actually, Mr. Jupe. I said how long has the company known it, not how long have you told people. Two different questions.
So again, if the company speaks through a vehicle like the website, then I would say that the company as an entity, or a group of individuals, is making a statement of what they know, of what the company knows.
Well, that may be, Mr. Jupe, you draw a line between what the company admits publicly and what the company has known privately. You think they're the same thing?
Objective form.
I think a company is a legal entity, is it not? And so when a company speaks, it's really when the company writes something down or puts it in a place like a website.
So you're saying the first time that the Philip Morris company admitted publicly that cigarettes were addictive was when?
I think I would use the 1999 time frame for the website, is when Philip Morris stated such.
All right. And so when inside Philip Morris, did the company scientists know and understand that cigarettes were addictive?
Objective form.
Obviously, I can't speak for every scientist. I mean, there's certainly the reclassification of the word addiction. I mean, this is a scientific term. I know it's used as a common term. But with the reclassification of that phrase a few years earlier, if you will, 10 years earlier, I don't know when every scientist came to the conclusion that cigarettes now met the new criteria. But that's why I say when the company writes it down on a website, that's when the company knows it.
Well, maybe I didn't ask clearly, so let me try again. First, I didn't ask when every scientist knew it. I asked when, in general, scientists who worked for the Philip Morris company realized, perhaps in secret, that cigarettes manufactured by Philip Morris were addictive.
Objective form.
Again, I don't know when a scientist or numerous scientists came to any of their own conclusions or beliefs of when cigarettes met the requirements to be addictive. I certainly think if you look in from 1988 on, I would say different people came to different positions at different times, but the company stated that on their website in 1999.
Well, I realize what may or may not have been on the website. I'm inquiring to clarify my question as to what happened behind the doors of Philip Morris prior to 1999. With that clarification, can you answer the question any differently?
Objective form.
I don't think I can answer the question any differently.
Well, Mr. Jude, in 1999, as you put it, when the company announced, this position, Wasn't it true that around that time, documents that had been previously secret were turned over to the public through in a vehicle called the Master Settlement Agreement? Remember that?
Object to form.
I certainly remember the Master Settlement Agreement, and part of the clauses, or part of the agreement, was making public, if you will, documents from companies like Phillip Morris.
And that was right around that time, wasn't it? I mean, 1998, 1999, Phillip Morris was required by this settlement to put documents on this website that no one had ever seen before, right?
Object to form.
We were certainly asked, required, or part of the agreement we came to with the states to make public documents.
And I mean, is it a yes to my question? I said there were documents, many of which the public had never seen, right?
Object to form.
I mean, I certainly can't speak for what documents came out at what time, and certainly there were documents that we have, as does any company, that the public doesn't see. And so, those documents were made available as part of the agreement we reached with the states.
So the answer to my question is yes, you posted documents in the 1998-99 time frame because you were required to do so on the website that had never been seen by the public.
Object to form.
True or false?
We came to agreement with the states, and part of the agreement was to make available documents, of which we've made millions available since that date. That was part of the agreement we reached.
And my question included the statement that many of these documents had never been seen by the public. True or false?
Object to form.
I would have to say that some, if not many, of the documents had never been seen by the public because they were files that a company didn't think were needed to be publicly available, as many companies don't have such.
So now you're saying that the only reason that you did not post the formerly secret documents before required to do so in the settlement agreement was you just didn't think the public needed to see them.
Object to form. Mischaracterizes the witness's testimony.
I certainly don't think that, I conveyed that answer in that manner. We certainly publish a lot of our research. And so really that is the vehicle for a lot of our information to get into, if you will, the scientific and the public field. Not every document a company has, whether it's Phillip Morris or any other company, is available to the public.
Well, if one of your scientists inside Phillip Morris had concluded in 1972 that nicotine was addictive and written extensively about how nicotine is the reason that people smoke, would that document be something the public would have liked to see before you were made to publish it?
Object to form.
I don't know what the public would have liked to have seen, just to answer your question. But again, our research has been published over the years. And so whether it's worthy of publication, that really relies on the journal you're working with.
Well, regardless of whether it's worthy of publication or whether it's just an opinion of one of your scientists of the time, do you think the public deserves to know what your scientists are thinking about the product that you make?
Object to form.
I think we use our publications very well. I think we publish to the scientific community. That's what science is. It moves knowledge forward. And how that is understood by the public is a very different question altogether.
Well, if your scientists in secret say nicotine is addictive in 1972 before much of the scientific community understood that, why didn't you publish it? Why didn't you tell people that was your thinking?
Object to form.
I don't know. I mean, you're making up, if you will, hypothetical here. I'm not sure what you're talking about. But there is information that we publish as a company on all topics.
Well, that wasn't my question, but do you deny that your scientists inside your own laboratories in the 1970s concluded that nicotine was addictive?
Object to form.
I don't know, what you're referring to as to scientists state and such, but I'd be glad to review something if you haven't.
Well, that wasn't my question. If we can do a question and answer, we'll get out. Do you deny, you sitting here today, you've got a knowledge of these company documents, don't you?
Objective form.
For me to sit here and tell you that I know of every company document would certainly be a mischaracterization. I just don't know of the document or the scientist or the topic you're referring to.
Well, let's see what you do know. You certainly have had access now to these documents that used to be secret. In fact, they've been out now on the website for over 10 years.
Objective
right?
form.
I have access, as does many people.
Well, I didn't ask for many people. You're here You're here giving testimony, right?
I am here to give testimony, yes.
So you have access, and not only to the stuff that's on the website, but to everything in the company, right?
Objective form.
I have access to the website, obviously. I have access to information that is within the company as well, yes.
So I'm sure when you come in, to testify about what the company did, you've looked back and looked at these documents to see what they say. What did the scientists say that was secret at the time, but now is available, right?
Objective form.
As part of my job, I've certainly looked back at a lot of research that was done before I was at the company. I can't sit here and tell you that I've read every single document that is available on the website. As I said, there are millions of documents.
Well, I didn't ask that. I asked whether you denied that scientists from Phillip Morris in the 1970s concluded that nicotine was addictive and that those documents were kept secret. That's what I'm asking you. Admit or deny if you can.
Objective form.
My answer to the question is, I'd like to discuss with you what document you're talking about. I don't know what document or what scientist you're talking about. Therefore, I cannot accept nor deny.
Well, based on your review, do you agree or disagree? Were there scientists, to your knowledge, who declared that nicotine was addictive, wrote about it, and those documents were kept secret?
Objective.
You just tell me.
I think a lot of work was done around nicotine. I mean, there's no question that nicotine has been studied by scientists at Phillip Morris. Now, whether nicotine met the criteria for being addictive in cigarettes is a different question altogether. And so, did they study the addictive nature of nicotine? Did they study the dependence of nicotine? Have many studied that? I think the answer to that question is yes, many have studied it.
All right. Did they write about it inside of Phillip Morris?
Objective form.
We have certainly studied and kept our research on that topic.
Okay. And who were the chief scientists at Phillip Morris that studied nicotine in the 70s?
Objective form.
I don't remember names sitting there.
Any?
In the 70s.
You don't remember any of the names?
I mean, as far as names of who was in charge or in vice president of R&D, who were the scientists. I mean, I think you've got people like Osdean, who was working at the company at that time, had a role within R&D.
Thomas Osdean.
And
Okay.
I've also read books by Bill Dunn, who was studying effects.
Bill Dunn, D-U-N-N?
Yes.
So you've read publications or rather internal memoranda by Bill Dunn?
Objection. Mischaracterizes what the witness just said.
Well, hang on now. Hang on. Because if we do that, we've been getting along well. But if we start with speaking objections that tell the witness or cue the witness that he's not supposed to agree because you say it mischaracterizes, we will not get along. And so I wonder if we can come to some agreement in this deposition that we will not do that. We will not do that because our Florida rules are very strict about there being only objections to form. And you're a good guy, and I want to get along with you, but we really can't have that kind of thing. That's just.
I apologize if I took more words than I needed to. Objection. Mischaracterizes the witness's proper testimony, which I think is a proper objection under the Florida
No,
rules.
it isn't. It isn't. You can't instruct him by virtue of your that somehow that was not what he's supposed to agree with. I mean, I disagree with you that you can say it mischaracterizes. I believe you can say, I object to the form of the question. If I ask and I say, please instruct me how I can correct the form, I think then I've asked. But other than that, we're pretty clear we can't do that. I would like it to also to offer you the courtesy of having a continuous form objection, since I would take the risk that I would ask good questions or not. But you don't have to agree with that. But I will not be able to restrain myself if we have, discussions like that. And I mean that, trying to get along.
I'm trying to get along too.
Good. Okay. Well, let's go forward and see how we do. All right. So I'm back to my question. So, Bill Dunn. Who was Bill Dunn?
He was a scientist at Phillip Morris.
What did he study?
Bill Dunn had many years at Phillip Morris. One of the things he studied was nicotine.
When did he start studying it?
I don't know that sitting here.
Is he alive?
No,
Did you ever talk to him?
no.
When did he die?
About 3 weeks ago, I understand.
Sorry? When was the last time he worked for Phillip Morris?
I don't know.
Well, so you know him through his writings, right?
Yes.
And he wrote about nicotine, and he wrote that it was part of his writing about why people smoke, right?
He wrote and published a lot on nicotine and behaviors. One of the books he published was called Motives and Incentives. It was a compilation of his and others' work on smoking.
And what was his fundamental conclusion about why people smoked?
I don't know if I could really state for you his fundamental conclusion. There was a lot of behavioral aspects to why people smoke as we understand that today. And for some people, they do indeed smoke for nicotine.
For some people?
Yes.
Well, now public health authorities have looked into this in some depth, have they not, since then? How many people smoke for nicotine?
Objective form.
Public health has certainly studied nicotine.
Well, again, that wasn't my question. I mean, my question was, public health authorities have looked in some depth since, as you put it, Bill Dunn's writing on the issue of how many people smoke because they need the nicotine, right?
Objective form.
The public health community has studied nicotine and addiction for many years.
And do you think that the public health community's conclusion today is that, some people smoke for nicotine? Really think that's accurate?
I don't know what I would point to as the combined statement of the public health community. I certainly have read a lot of that stuff, publications and information, and certainly they don't espouse that everybody smokes for nicotine. So some, not everybody, whichever way you want to phrase it.
How about 80% of regular cigarette users are addicted? Is that fair?
Objective form.
I'm certainly not someone who studies nicotine, nor am I an addiction expert, but what I've read in the public health community is that some people are addicted and some people are addicted to nicotine.
Well, that was my question. So let's say if you are, tell me as a scientist, what percentage of people in the United States today that smoke are addicted to nicotine?
Objective form.
As someone who doesn't study addiction, I don't know that answer.
Well, isn't that a pretty important question to anybody who's interested in the health effects of cigarettes?
Objective form.
I think the question is smoking addictive? The answer is yes. My job at the company is certainly to try and reduce the harm of cigarettes, and the harm being the diseases that it causes, like lung cancer, cardiovascular disease, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and others. That's what I do for Phillip Morris.
All right, my question was, isn't it pretty important whether 80% of the people who use cigarettes are addictive versus, let's say, if only 10% were?
Objective form.
Again, I think understanding people, understanding addiction, that is a field for people who do study that area. And if people are looking for different reasons to help people quit, understanding their behaviors, what motivates them to quit, etc., is a very important thing. the importance I apply to reducing risk of cigarettes is to try and reduce the harm associated with the constituents, with the exposure.
Well, so you're telling me, as you sit here today, you don't know what percentage of people have been even estimated by the Surgeon General, by the National Cancer Institute as being addicted who smoke cigarettes in the United States.
Again, I mean, I'd be glad to look at those documents you're referring to. But again, yes, there are estimates from the National Cancer Institute. There are estimates from the Surgeon Generals. I'm just telling you, I don't study that area. And I've got no information that would question what they conclude.
Well, all right, so your operating assumption, as you move forward, you're involved in like designing and producing cigarettes for sale, right, in the United States, right?
Yes.
Now, are you saying that nicotine addiction is not part of what you need to know about to design cigarettes?
Objective form.
There's no question that cigarettes are addictive. Cigarettes, I think, really are inherently addictive because for many reasons. And my job is really, the importance we bring to our role is to try and reduce the risk of smoking cigarettes by reducing one's exposure to those chemicals in smoke that cause the diseases I just listed.
All right, so have you attempted to design and develop a non-addictive cigarette?
Objective form.
I think all cigarettes are addictive, and I don't think there's any question to that. Again, the work we've done is try and reduce the risk of cigarettes by reducing exposure to these other chemicals.
I'm sorry that my questions aren't clear if they're not, but I thought I asked pretty clearly. Have you tried to design a non-addictive cigarette? Can you answer?
Objective form.
I have never worked on a project that its objective would be to reduce the addictive nature of a cigarette.
Well, you would know about these projects, right?
Objective form.
If they existed, right?
Generally, I would know, yes.
So now you're telling me Phillip Morris has not ever tried to develop a non-addictive cigarette.
Objective form.
Again, Phillip Morris's attempts have been trying to reduce the risk of cigarettes by reducing other constituents. Now, have we had an objective, to my knowledge, of trying to reduce the addictive nature of a cigarette? I don't know of such a project.
Why not?
Again, I think it goes back to what I said. The importance we put into reducing the risk is to reducing the risk of things like lung cancer, cardiovascular disease.
I don't understand. It's fine for you to try and reduce the lung cancer. My question was, why don't you try and produce a non-addictive cigarette?
Again, our approach has been to reduce risks in other ways, and that has not been something that we have said is what we could actually achieve within a cigarette.
Well, one step at a time. You said, well, your approach is a different approach. Are you telling me you don't have enough money to do both?
Objective form.
No, I think from my experience at Phillip Morris, we have said we will reduce the risk of smoking by reducing the chances of these diseases. To reduce the addictive nature of a cigarette, then that is obviously a very different objective. And we have put our resources, if you will, our responsibility aspect from our company into helping people quit.
Well, let's start one thing at a time. You said that you had not tried to develop, you being Phillip Morris, had not tried to develop a non-addictive cigarette. So are you saying you don't have the resources to try and develop a non-addictive cigarette?
No, I didn't say that we didn't have the resources.
All right, so granted that you're, all right, so now you've got some program, you say we're going to try to make cigarettes not cause lung cancer, right?
Yes.
You failed. They cause lung cancer, right?
Objective form.
Cigarettes cause lung cancer.
The cigarettes you sell today in September or October of 2011 cause lung cancer, right?
Objective form.
Cigarettes today still cause lung cancer. That is correct, and that's not through anything other than, it's not because of a lack of trying.
Well, fine. And then you say, well, we've tried to make cigarettes so they don't cause emphysema and chronic bronchitis. You failed. They cause emphysema and they cause chronic bronchitis, correct?
Objective form.
We have spent numerous resources and time working on reducing the risk of cigarettes, but again, we have not been able to produce a cigarette that reduces or eliminates, I should say, emphysema, bronchitis, or have we been successful in generating a safe cigarette.
How many brands does Philip Morris make?
Between a dozen and 2 dozen, I don't know the count exactly.
Give me 5.
Marlboro, Parliament, Benson and Hedges, L&M, Basic.
All right, does a Marlboro cause less or more lung cancer than a Parliament?
Objective form.
I don't have an answer to that question. There is no way of answering that question. Cigarettes unquestionably cause lung cancer.
Well, do you have any
And-
brands?
excuse me.
I'm sorry, I never interrupt deliberately. I really
Okay,
don't.
sure.
If I do, I will immediately stop and let him. So
Okay.
put yourself at ease. I don't interrupt witnesses.
Okay.
Okay, no problem. Please go ahead.
Thank you. We certainly have implemented within all our cigarette designs features to try and reduce exposure. There is no cigarette that is safe. There is no cigarette that doesn't produce lung cancer. We have tried to reduce exposure. And we have been successful, I believe, in reducing some of the risk associated, but not have we been successful in eliminating the risk.
Are you telling us that there are some brands you make that are safer than others?
I think if you realize that a smoker's disease chances go up with exposure, and if you reduce one's exposure to smoke, then some of our cigarettes we know reduce the exposure now of smoke to smokers.
Some of your cigarettes reduce the exposure to smoke?
Yes. Well,
How do they do that?
Let me rephrase that. I mean, relative to what's currently on the market, some reduce exposure more than others.
How do they do that?
Well, I mean, if you go back through science and time, the advent of something like filters and these other design changes, the literature is very complete on reducing the risk of things like lung cancer. So reducing the amount of smoke a smoker gets, coming from non-filtered cigarettes to filtered cigarettes, has reduced some of the risk. But again, there are no safe cigarettes.
Well, my question is, if there are brands that are safer than others, which brands are those?
Objective form.
I believe in that less is better.
Less what?
Less smoke is better. From
Less
an
smoke.
exposure to the constituents, to the thousands of chemicals in smoke.
Well, okay, tell me. Let's say I'm a customer. I don't want to get lung cancer. I don't want to die of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. I don't want to die of heart disease. But I'm addicted to smoking. So I call you up on the phone and I say, Mr. Jupe, you're a scientist. You're an expert. Tell me, are there brands you make that are better for me than other brands? What are you going to say?
Objective form.
First, a couple of things. I mean, we certainly do not talk to adult smokers about the health effects or benefits or anything associated with our cigarettes. For many years, we've deferred to the public health to be the only people speaking to the public, the only people speaking to the public on the health effects of smoking. We don't have that type of public conversation with smokers. We don't do that. That is our policy. And so we rely on the public health community. So that question would not be answered if you called me up today.
Well, I'm not asking you whether the cigarettes cause cancer. I'm asking you, you are the one that make the different brands. You're the guys that know what's in these cigarettes. You're the guys who put the stuff in it. You're the guys who do the testing. Tell me, if you got a brand that's safer, let me know what it is. What is it?
Objective form.
Again, we point to the public health community. I'm not trying to avoid answering your question. The public health community has a message to smokers. Their message is relatively simple, is don't start, and if you do smoke, that is to quit. There is nothing else that the public health community currently communicates to smokers. And so that is the message we would give to smokers, is by pointing them to the public health community. We wouldn't answer that question.
You can't answer? You mean your testimony is you spent all this time doing this research to produce safer cigarettes, and now you say you can't even tell the public, if they call, which ones are safer?
Objective form.
I think our company's position on communicating to the public is very, very clear. It's very clear that we point them directly and solely to the public health community.
Well, I just looked at the 2010 Surgeon General report. It didn't say that you had some brands of cigarettes that were supposedly safer than others. Does it?
The Surgeon General's report, you're asking, does not state differences amongst cigarettes. You're asking me my opinion in a prior question. And so I think the Surgeon General's report, his message there is again, please don't smoke, and if you do smoke, quit.
So I'm back to that. I'd like to find a brand. You make more than one brand, right?
Yes.
Are there differences in the health effects of these brands?
I think all cigarettes are very dangerous. I think over time we've learned that one's exposure to smoke will drive diseases like lung cancer, etc. And in my opinion, if you smoke a cigarette with a lower amount of smoke, a lower tar, a lower machine-measured tar, you're exposing yourself to less and less. So, in my opinion, I think those cigarettes will reduce the risk of cigarettes today that produce a high amount of smoke, if you will.
Well, okay, you said a couple things. Number one, you said you have certain cigarettes that produce a lower amount of machine-measured tar. Is that right?
Yes, I said that.
On a smoking machine, right?
Yes.
All right, so which ones are those? Before we get into the question of whether that is what people really get, let's talk about, well, which ones?
I'll pick one, Merit Bronze.
Merit Bronze, all right? So now do you have a package of Merit Bronze on you?
No, I do not.
Have any cigarettes on you?
No.
You smoke?
Yes.
Smoke cigarettes?
Yes.
Today?
Yes.
How much do you smoke?
Less than a pack a day.
What does that mean, less than?
It varies. I mean, some days I may smoke 30 or 40, other days I don't smoke any.
So you've smoked like 2 packs in some days.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do. Excuse me.
What kind of cigarettes do you smoke?
It varies. I usually stick with Marlboro in a red pack.
Well, there are different kinds of Marlboros, aren't there?
Yes, there are.
So when you say it's a red pack, not knowing anything about smoking, what cigarette is that?
It's called Marlboro Box.
Marlboro Box.
That's the name we give it.
Okay, so do you smoke these Marlboro boxes? Does your company smoke them on a machine to make a measurement?
Hang on. Yes. Did you get that?
Yeah. If you have a cough or anything, you need to take a break. That's
no, I'm
okay.
good. Excuse me. I got a tickle.
Okay. And if you need to smoke, you can tell me, and
No, I'm good.
we'll take
Thank
a
you.
break. All right.
Thank you.
All right. So somewhere in the company, somebody takes these Marlboro Reds. Are they Reds? I can't remember. I'm sorry. Marlboro Red Box.
We can call them Marlboro Reds if you wish.
Marlboro Reds. All right.
Yes.
And they smoke them on a machine to measure how much smoke they deliver.
Yes.
So where would I get that number?
We would give that number to the Federal Trade Commission. We give that number to the FDA, but we don't use that number in any of our advertising or communications.
Well, I mean, you told me you thought it would be better if people had smoked the cigarettes that gave less smoke on the machine. So now I'm saying, well, okay, the Marlboro Reds. So I want to have a table here of how much smoke they give on the machine. So how much? Where would someone know how much smoke the red cigarette gave on the machine?
Currently, that is not communicated. And again, you asked me my opinion, but again, we point to the public health, and that is not something that the public health thinks should be communicated to smokers.
You're saying you're not allowed to tell them
Objective form.
how much smoke comes out of that thing on the machine?
Objective form.
We have been asked for many years to include that number in our advertising. We have no longer use that number in our advertising.
Well, I know, but I could interpret that different ways. Are you saying that the government stops you from using it, or that you just no longer requires you from using it?
Objective form.
I don't know, the legalities of what the government states on something like that. I'm certainly not part of a group that would know that. Sorry.
Well, all right. So you don't tell anybody how much smoke, right?
We don't communicate to the public in any way the tar numbers, etc., from a machine measurements.
And there are different cigarettes, Marlboros, that give less smoke on the machine?
different Marlboros would yield different amount of smoke on the machine, yes.
Just give me, for example, what other kinds of Marlboros there are.
There are, I've talked about Marlboro Red, if you will. There's Marlboro Special Blend, there's Marlboro Gold, there's Marlboro Silver, there's Marlboro Menthol.
So is Marlboro Gold, does that have less smoke than Marlboro Red?
Yes, on a machine, yes.
How would anyone know that?
Currently today, I don't know how people would know that. Like I said, we give that information to the Federal Trade Commissions when they request it. We also have given those numbers to the FDA.
All right, it's a good time to take a break. Change state.
Going off record at 10:06 a.m. This is the end of tape one.